Who invented ketchup? What if I told you that the world's most famous tomato sauce was never supposed to contain tomatoes at all? It sounds impossible. After all, ketchup and tomatoes seem inseparable. French fries, burgers, hot dogs, pizza. For millions of people, ketchup simply is tomato sauce. But for most of its history, there wasn't a single tomato in it. In fact, if you travel back 500 years and asked someone for ketchup, you probably would have been handed a bottle of fermented fish sauce. No tomatoes. No sugar. No vinegar. Just fish. So, who invented ketchup? Was it an American? An Italian chef? Or the company that made it famous? The truth is far stranger. Because ketchup wasn't invented once. It evolved, crossing oceans, surviving empires, and completely reinventing itself several times before becoming the sweet red sauce we know today. Our story begins not in America, not in Europe, but along the southern coast of ancient China. Centuries ago, fishermen faced a familiar problem. Fresh fish spoiled quickly. Without refrigeration, every catch had a deadline. But someone discovered something remarkable. If small fish were packed with salt and left to ferment, they transformed into a dark, intensely flavorful liquid. It smelled strong. It looked nothing like modern ketchup. But it lasted for months, and just a few drops could transform an entire meal. The sauce became known as ke-tsiap or ke-tsiap, depending on the local dialect. Nobody could have imagined that this humble fish sauce would one day become one of the most recognizable condiments on earth. Because its greatest journey was only just beginning. The story of ke-tsiap didn't stay in China for long. By the 16th and 17th centuries, Chinese merchants were sailing across Southeast Asia, carrying silk, porcelain, tea, and barrels of their prized fermented sauce. As the recipe spread, local cooks began adapting it to the ingredients they had. Some used anchovies. Others added shrimp, oysters, or different kinds of fish. Every port gave the sauce its own unique flavor, but its purpose remained the same: to add a deep, savory taste to food. Then European sailors arrived. British and Dutch traders working for the East India Companies tasted the mysterious sauce in the busy ports of present-day Malaysia, Indonesia, and southern China. They had never experienced anything quite like it. It was salty, rich, and packed with what we now call umami, the deep savory flavor that makes food incredibly satisfying. The sailors loved it. So they did what travelers have always done. They brought it home. But there was one problem. The original ingredients were almost impossible to find in Europe. There were no tropical fish sauces waiting on English docks. The long voyage also made importing the sauce expensive and unreliable. If Europeans wanted ketchup, they would have to reinvent it. And that's exactly what they did. Instead of fermented fish, British cooks began experimenting with whatever ingredients they had available. Some recipes used mushrooms. Others relied on anchovies, oysters, walnuts, or even mussels. Each version tasted completely different, yet they all shared the same goal: creating a rich, savory seasoning that could last for months without spoiling. In the 1700s, English cookbooks were already publishing recipes for ketchup. Strangely, many of them still contain no tomatoes at all. For nearly 2 centuries, ketchup wasn't a single recipe. It was an idea, a preserved sauce designed to make ordinary food taste extraordinary. Then, a fruit from the Americas began spreading across Europe. At first, most people were terrified of it. They believed it was poisonous. Ironically, that misunderstood fruit would soon give ketchup its most famous ingredient. That mysterious fruit was the tomato. Originally native to South America, tomatoes arrived in Europe during the 16th century after Spanish explorers returned from the Americas. But instead of being welcomed, they were feared. Because tomatoes belonged to the nightshade family, many Europeans believed they were poisonous. Wealthy families sometimes became ill after eating tomatoes served on pewter plates, leading people to blame the fruit, when, in reality, the acidic tomatoes were dissolving lead from the plates. For generations, tomatoes were grown mainly as ornamental plants rather than food. Then, everything changed. In the early 1800s, American cooks began experimenting with tomatoes in ways Europeans never had. They discovered that when tomatoes were cooked with vinegar, spices, and a little sweetness, they created a sauce that was brighter, fresher, and more balanced than the older mushroom or fish-based versions. One of the earliest known tomato ketchup recipes was published in 1812 by American scientist and horticulturist James Mees. His recipe used ripe tomatoes, spices, and brandy, but still no sugar, and it tasted very different from the ketchup we know today. Soon, tomato ketchup spread rapidly across the United States. Every household had its own recipe. Some were sweet. Some were spicy. Others were surprisingly sour. But there was one major problem. Fresh tomatoes spoiled quickly. Early bottled ketchup often fermented after only a short time on the shelf. Some manufacturers tried to hide the problem by adding dangerous preservatives such as coal tar dyes, benzoic acid, or even formaldehyde to make the sauce last longer. Consumers had no idea what they were really eating. Ketchup had become popular. But it had also become a gamble. It seemed the sauce that had survived centuries of change might be ruined by the very people trying to sell it. Then one businessman made a promise that changed everything. He wouldn't just make better ketchup. He would make ketchup people could finally trust. That businessman was Henry Heinz. In 1876, Heinz introduced a new kind of tomato ketchup that would redefine the sauce forever. Instead of hiding poor-quality ingredients behind artificial colors and harsh preservatives, he insisted on using ripe tomatoes, distilled vinegar, sugar, salt, and a carefully balanced blend of spices. More importantly, Heinz focused on cleanliness and consistency, something surprisingly rare in the food industry at the time. He also made another brilliant decision. He packed his ketchup in clear glass bottles. Most food manufacturers preferred dark bottles to hide imperfections. Heinz did the opposite. By letting customers see exactly what was inside, he sent a powerful message: we have nothing to hide. That simple idea helped build trust and quickly set Heinz apart from its competitors. Within a few decades, ketchup had spread from American kitchens to restaurants around the world. It became the perfect companion for hamburgers, hot dogs, French fries, fried chicken, and countless other foods. Today, billions of servings of ketchup are enjoyed every year, making it one of the most recognizable condiments on Earth. But here's the most fascinating part of the story. The inventors of the original ke-tsiap would probably never recognize modern ketchup. Their sauce was salty, fermented, made from fish. Modern ketchup is sweet, tangy, bright red, and built around tomatoes. The two sauces taste almost nothing alike. Yet they share the same name, and the same remarkable history. So, who invented ketchup? The answer isn't Henry Heinz. He perfected modern tomato ketchup. It isn't the Americans. They transformed tomatoes into the sauce we know today. And it isn't the British. They reinvented the original recipe when they couldn't find the ingredients. The true origins go back centuries, to the fishermen of southern China, who accidentally created a fermented fish sauce called ke-tsiap. That simple seasoning crossed oceans, inspired countless new recipes, and slowly evolved into one of the world's most famous condiments. It's an extraordinary journey. From fishing villages, to sailing ships. From mushroom kitchens, to tomato farms. From a salty fish sauce, to the bright red bottle sitting on your table today. Sometimes, the world's greatest inventions aren't created in a single moment. They evolve, one generation, one culture, and one recipe, at a time.